And we welcome everyone to the Friday edition. Finally made it here. You decided to wear neutral colors today.
That's right.
Nice job. So we'll open up.
Learning experience.
Since training camps are underway, time now for 49 good San Francisco seconds.
Training camps are interesting right now. Obviously, not 49ers related, but Burrow getting carted off. Yeah. I don't think you play him in the preseason now at all if you're the Bengals.
Jalen Ramsey?
Ramsey, same thing. And, that's the worry. And that's
not the same thing. I mean,
no,
he needs surgery.
No, same thing, meaning the injuries in training camp. Yeah. But from a 49ers standpoint, I think they're being very, very cautious with Brock Purdy, and that's why. Those two reasons are exactly why I think you do that. He's coming up elbow surgery.
Yep.
He's got to really get the throwing motion back. He's, for the most part, with no limits right now, but I think you got to stay cautious with him. There's no doubt about it. And reason being the two things I just said. Cincinnati looks like avoided a heck of a crisis, and unfortunately for the Dolphins, Jalen Ramsey's going to need surgery.
You have exceeded your 49 seconds. We're done.
There you go.
All right.
I was less the last 2 days, so that makes up for it.
No, I'm sorry. This is
not how it works.
Okay, this is not a bank. All right.
No, if it were a bank, they'd be right no matter what.
I mean, look, we're trying to keep the audience here. I'm not.
That's right.
All right. So Colorado makes the move. You always felt that of all the schools in the Pac-10, they would be the first one of the remaining group that would go. Only because of proximity. They're sitting there on the easternmost part of the Pac-10. Now they get back into where their roots are. They started in 1947 as part of the Big Six, stayed there as part of the Big Eight, part of the expansion with the merger with the Southwest Conference, where they brought in 4 to make it the Big 12, and then finally they left. It's amazing what time means. And I'm not talking about September like I talked about yesterday, although we'll reiterate it. Let's go back to 2010, 2011, right around there. It's about the time Colorado goes to the Pac-12. And when when they go, everyone was wondering if the Texas and Oklahoma would go to the Pac-12 with them to make it the Pac-14. And they were on the verge of doing it. But again, what derailed it? What derailed it is what derails Texas every single time. Texas, everywhere they're going, it's amazing because the SEC, they won't do this. Texas demanded a bigger cut, which is what put the Big 12 to the brink of disorganization and extinction just a couple of years ago. And when Nebraska was in the conference, now let's go back to the Big 12. Tom Osborne was the athletic director at Nebraska at the time. There was rumors swirling about the possibility of the Big 10. Osborne went into a meeting, and I got this from somebody at Nebraska. They told me this. He went to a Big 12 meeting, and he wanted to know if Texas was going to share any of the Longhorn Network money with the rest of the conference, since other members of the conference were playing on the Longhorn Network against them. And the answer was expected. They expected it, was no. They're not going to share the revenue from it. So the answer was no, which Osborne expected. And that's where they broke away, because Texas was getting and has been getting a bigger share of the Big 12 money. And that stayed all the way through. Well, at that same time, when they were talking about the possibility of Texas and Oklahoma going to the Pac-12, which was considered to be the hot conference to go to, what derailed it was Texas wanted the same thing. They wanted more money from the cut of the pie. And the Pac-12 looked and said, no. But if that had happened, we wouldn't be talking about this today. The Pac-12 was making good moves. The Big 12 was imploding. They were able to keep Texas, Oklahoma, but they lose Nebraska. They lose Texas A&M. They lose Missouri. Right? And you're sitting there like, oh, okay. What's going to happen with this group? So now, years later, after mismanagement by the Pac-12 network's a mess. Big Ten Network, Rock of Gibraltar. ESPN runs the SEC network. ESPN runs the ACC network. The Pac-12 networks are an absolute mess. They never were able to get the clearances they needed, especially from Dish and others, to be carried. So the revenue that was projected never happened. Everybody got some, but I'm talking like some like this. I mean, no offense, Penn State gets more from its radio contract per year than a Pac-12 team does from the Pac-12 networks deal. I mean, Penn State radio, they make more money than a team gets from a cut from the Pac-12 networks. How about that?
That's amazing.
All right? Just so you know. I mean, that's how messed up it's been. And when they signed their TV deal, it was considered to be a bedrock 10-year, wow, this is a standard, an industry standard deal. Okay. And the Big Ten in the cycle went last. And everyone thought that the Big Ten may have, by going last, may have exceeded the tidal wave to the shore. And instead, to the credit of Jim Delaney, he got Fox involved. He did a shorter deal at 6 years, which then forced the hand of ESPN where he got more money. Plus, of course, he had BTN. And suddenly the Big Ten was at an industry standard. And by going to the shorter period of time, who negotiated first in the next round? Oh, it was the Big Ten. Okay. So here we are sitting today. The Big 12, which has bounced back, but let's not go overboard in how they bounce back. They got the 12, and they got 4 good programs. Nothing earth-shattering. Houston, Cincinnati, UCF, BYU. They're good programs, but they are not difference-making programs. To me, if you're going to expand, it better be a difference-making program. If you're going to expand, you get USC and UCLA. If you're going to expand, you get Texas and Oklahoma. They've expanded, and they've picked up BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, right? UCF, and now Colorado. It doesn't move the needle much. I did not think about Deion Sanders not being at Pac-12 Media Day last week. But now you find out that the surgery he had was something he could have scheduled anytime. You know, now we know he's been hospitalized for serious things, but this wasn't one of them. I didn't realize that, all right, until today. The tip-off that there was a huge problem was when the Colorado president got up and said, hey, I got to get your plane on Friday. You do? Really? Wow. So they come back and they go back to where, let's face it, I think where most people feel like Colorado belongs.
Yeah.
Right? So they've gone back. The Pac-12 didn't work out for them. And competitively, they got buried by it. one quick note about Deion Sanders as a coach. This is going to test he and his staff for the next 2 years, more than some of you may realize. We can talk about the changeover in personnel and so forth, but you have to know a little bit about the people you're playing. He is going to play an entirely different schedule this year of schools he has never seen before because he's been coaching at Jackson State. So they're going to have to get together 12 scouting reports on teams where personnel-wise, they don't have a gauge except for what they see on video. When you're going year to year, for example, Penn State will play Ohio State. All right? Well, you sort of know what JTT does, right? You sort of know how Eichenberg plays at linebacker. You kind of know how Steel Chambers plays at outside linebacker. You got to feel he's outstanding, but at least you got to feel as to how Marvin Harrison plays because you've seen it in person to go with the video. Well, Penn State's schedule this year, for example, has 6 schools, obviously, they played last year. Actually, no, 7, because Northwestern. Right? And then 2 schools, Illinois and Iowa, that they played 2 years ago. So there's still some personnel there. The ones they don't have are West Virginia, Delaware, UMass. All right? But imagine an entire schedule like that. Now, why do I bring that up? Because it was something Joe Paterno brought up to me when Penn State went to the Big Ten. He said, I kind of knew what the left tackle of West Virginia was like. We've seen him for a couple of years. His tendencies, maybe, hey, you look at the tape, is he a little bit better? Right? Is he still have some of the same bad habits? Is he really improved? He said, we got to learn everybody. Well, guess what? Deion Sanders and his staff are going to have to learn everybody for 2 years. Because they're going to play all the Pac-12 teams this year. And then they're going to play all Big 12 teams the year after. The only one you'll have some commonality with will be TCU, which is this year's opener. And I don't even know if TCU's not going to be on their schedule in 2 years. Nobody knows. So let's talk about the financial part of it. It's an interesting deal to go to the Big 12, and these schools are all going to get the $31.7 million. That's a big part. So they're not taking away from Kansas and Kansas State and Iowa State and Oklahoma State. You know the Big 12 isn't going to sit at 13. I mean, who sits at an odd number? Oh, wait. Hold on. Sorry.
Never happened in the Big Ten.
It would never happen in the Big Ten.
It's called the Big Ten for a reason. There'd never be 11 teams in there.
In fact, you could put together a logo that has an 11 in it somewhere, can't you? No. So they're not going to sit at 13. Everybody knows that. Common sense. And what makes the Pac-12 incredibly vulnerable? Because they don't have a TV contract, and the grant of rights runs out in a little more than 12 months. So you can seamlessly, USC and UCLA are seamlessly going to let the contract expire. August 2nd next year, they become official members of the Big Ten. They are not violating a grant of rights. There is no exit fee. They just go from one to the next. Colorado lets it expire. There is no exit fee. There is no violation of the grant of rights. They seamlessly go from one to the next. There is no need to find a courtroom anywhere in the country to allow these to go. And, of course, as I pointed out about Texas and Oklahoma, ask yourself why they're paying $50 million apiece to get out of the final year. That's to get out of 1 year, not like 3 years. That's $50 million apiece to get out of 1 year. That's because essentially that is the exit fee in combination with the grant of rights. Okay. Hey, you got to be able to put 2 and 2 together to get 4 here. Everyone, now let's get to the part that I always find to be the more interesting part of sports. When are your worst decisions made? Your worst decisions are made when you panic. Can't imagine you've ever panicked about anything. Your heart rate's usually 30.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Have I ever seen you angry? I don't think so.
Not often. It doesn't happen often. It's happened, but it doesn't happen often.
Yeah. You know me. I fly off the handle left and right.
That's right. But yeah, to add to that, I think, when you panic, and the other part of that, when you worry about what someone else is doing more so than you worry what you're doing, I think that is another thing that leads to downfalls. There's no question. And a part of that goes to panic. I think there's no question about it. We've seen organizations do that.
Well, and that's where your worst decisions are made.
Absolutely.
So, Colorado moved. Now everybody else is going to move.
Yeah.
Just slow down.
Yeah.
Slow down.
Nope.
Okay? I keep saying over and over again, I don't want the Big Ten to expand.
Not right now, no. It's got to deal with the two teams that just got in.
Well,
they're getting in next year.
Right. More than that. I mean, it's a combination of money and slices of pie, which I've talked about a million times, right? And organization.
Yeah.
Everybody acts like this is easy to do. Yeah. It's not easy to do.
And it has to make sense for everybody, too. You can't just, it's not like picking something off the Christmas tree.
Right.
Oh, I want this. They're bringing this. Yeah, it's got to make perfect sense.
Now, I know everybody's talking about the August 15th deadline on ACC schools to say they're going to stay in or what, it deals with their payments and so forth. I'm sorry. You signed the contract. Okay? No offense. That is the way it goes. So, my question to them is, okay, each year, and without question, you're going to fall further behind the SEC and the Big Ten financially. Okay? There's a reason for that. Okay? You're in the ACC, Alabama, Georgia, Texas, Oklahoma, Florida, right? On and on, LSU, Texas A&M. They're all in the SEC. They're not in your conference. Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, USC are all in the Big Ten. They are not in your conference. Okay? Those are the biggest brands going in college sports. And it's college sports on TV contracts have become more about brands than in combination with markets. You can start claiming market areas in your footprint. But it's about the brands. Right? Penn State may be in State College, but they also bring the markets of Philadelphia, Pittsburgh to the table. Michigan, of course, brings Detroit. But it's brands, because brands don't just go to your region. Penn State is not about just being a great Pennsylvania school with great football. Penn State extends all across the country brand-wise. Michigan extends across the country brand-wise. Ohio State does. USC does. That's what a brand does. A brand is something that resonates in 50 states. Texas, Oklahoma, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, they resonate 50 states. Clemson resonates in the Southeast. Florida State, sort of. Mm-hmm. That's a problem. They can talk value all they want. But it's not a question of, I want to get out. Okay? Let's start with this. I want to get out. Okay. Well, what's the exit fee? What's the grant of rights situation? How much money are you going to pay in court fees to attempt to get out of it? You're not going to recoup the court fees. You're not going to do that.
Yep.
So now you're going over and over again as to, the money is so steep because you have to pay exit fees, grant of rights. Now, maybe you want to negotiate a settlement there. Who knows? But then, we're going to take you to court. Now you got to start paying lawyers. How much money are you blowing as this process goes? And can you make it up? Oh, and by the way, who wants you? For some reason, everybody thinks, oh, we got to have what?
Yeah. No.
I'm sitting here with 16 really good schools. He's sitting there with 16 really good schools. Where are you going to go? You got to get the Big Ten into the southeastern part of the country. Why? Any particular reason why?
No.
Okay. You already have major brands that resonate in 50 states.
Yep.
Right? That's the part I don't get.
And it brings to the, you talked about Clemson really not having that resonance within 50 states, and I don't think they do either. I think they are a more established program now than they were 15, 20 years ago, but I don't think they have enough. Yeah, I don't think they have enough to me right now that they would be the most appealing. Obviously, Notre Dame's always going to be that team. But other than that, I don't think there's anybody else really in college football right now that has that appeal whatsoever. Yeah, we've talked about it with Florida State. Did they have that appeal in the 90s? Yeah, you bet they did. But, having said that, now they just don't. I think they've got to expand to the point that it can get back to that point, whether that's bringing something in that can do that or whatever it is. But right now, it's not there. And those are probably your two biggest programs in the ACC that would have the potential to move. And it just doesn't make sense right now for them to be in either the SEC or the AC or the Big Ten. I don't think, at least.
Well, here's the deal. A lot of people look at conference realignment and they make the wrong assumptions. If I hear one more time how you have to have Stanford, to do what?
No.
What do you want Stanford
The only
for?
way you would want Stanford is if you didn't care about the money and you only want the Director's Cup standings. That's literally, that's about it.
If I hear one more time, well, they're great in this sport, great in that. No. Okay? It's, okay, if you're really great in the really neat sports, hey, they're winning. That's really neat.
Yeah.
They're losing. Too bad.
Yeah.
Right? If you're really, really good in that, and you're not good in football, and you can't draw a TV rating in football, I don't want you.
No.
Okay? That's what it comes down to.
Absolutely.
Okay? You've got to check the silliness at the door, and it's silly.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay? Oh, but they're great in this sport and this sport. No.
And even
nobody sits there and says, wow, let's get them. They're great at 8 sports. Is one of them football? Well, no. Then I don't want them.
No, you've got the brand that you wanted from the Pac-12 now in the Big Ten. You got USC. That was the biggest one.
That's right.
UCLA, I think, is to an extent a bonus. You have that Los Angeles market. You already had it with USC. You get UCLA, that's fine. But I think, to me, you look at Stanford, and even I agree with the silliness and even the not so silliness part. The academics, they're incredible in academics, but it's not going to matter in terms of what you're getting. You can't ignore the money factor. You can't ignore what brings in the money, and that's football. And that's nothing. And that's nothing against their academics. It's incredible.
Well, great. Then bring in Harvard.
Exactly. Harvard, Yale, or any kind of Ivy League. Penn's close enough. Bring Penn in here. Get a rivalry going.
The only thing that would get Stanford is if Notre Dame were to say yes, and they suddenly slipped in, hey, how about Stanford to make it an even number?
Yeah, then obviously, of course. Well, of course.
I'm sitting there like going, okay, now I'll listen to that.
Yeah, certainly. I don't think there's any question about that.
But in terms of the academic profile, which is awesome at Stanford.
Yeah. Again, Director's Cup standings consistently high with Stanford.
That's fine. But that
exactly. It's not going to bring in money, though.
That doesn't get any money into the program.
No, that's exactly right.
You want to lose $3 million? Let's bring in Stanford women's basketball. You want to lose? Mm-hmm. Right? How many? Okay, Stanford tried to crush wrestling.
I was going to say, tried to drop wrestling.
Yeah. They saved it. All right? But all that matters is how much money can you bring in. Hey, all right. Let's phrase it this way.
Well, it's not only the money; it's the football factor.
But let's take that part aside. Let's do this. Anybody that goes to the Big Ten must bring with it $75 million of value a year.
Yeah.
Why? because it's an approximation as to what the TV contract is, 75, 80, whatever.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to bring that. If you bring $40 million of value to the Big Ten,
no,
I can't take it.
No. And there's no team not named Notre Dame that's going to bring $75 million.
Exactly. In other words, I can't slice up the pie and make it smaller for everybody. No. It's got to
make sense to do that.
It's got to be an equal share. You have to bring $75 to $90 million, $75 to $100 million in value, in media value to the table for me to look at you. I already have my TV contract. I'm just starting it. I'm just starting my new TV contract. I'm not in the middle of it.
Starting
I'm not
a new
near the end
TV
of it.
contract, also starting with 2 other teams next year. You still have to you still have to worry about adjusting to that too.
Right.
And
you can't. Okay.
Yeah.
That's why Notre Dame's the only big chip left. They can bring $75 to $100 million in value, and the Big Ten knows it. Supposedly, there's a clause in the contract about it.
Yeah. And they can bring 75, whether it's Stanford or somebody else. Notre Dame can bring the $75 million in, and that other piece of the pie, if they want somebody else to come with them, they can balance out that loss. Right. There's no question about it. So if Notre Dame wanted somebody else, there's no doubt they'd bring somebody in. It doesn't matter who it is. Notre Dame could say Syracuse, and they could bring them in because Notre Dame makes enough revenue to that conference that they could cancel out whoever they want to join them, the loss they're going to take, which would be a significant loss.
It is. That's where you have to sit back. I can expand in the Big 12. Does Colorado bring $31.7 million of value to the table? Sure.
I think so.
Right. Do they bring 75 to 100? No.
Not a chance.
Does Florida State bring 75 to 100? No. Does Clemson bring 75 to 100? No. I mean,
I'm not even sure they bring 50.
Yeah, but you have to look at it. You have to look at it in that way. Yeah. I'm not going to take less money at Indiana to get that guy in. That guy doesn't help me.
Mm-hmm.
I got to take less money because you brought them in. They're not. The TV networks aren't going to say, "Hey, here's an extra $150 million for you per year." Hey, you already have them saying, "I have you done." Mm-hmm. I'm focusing on the NBA contract.
Absolutely.
I am focusing on I'm focusing on the college football playoff contract. Let's not forget that one. I forgot to mention that the other day. Okay?
Yep.
You need to bid for the NBA contract. You need to bid for the college football playoff contract. There are going to be multiple bidders for that. And there might be multiple packages for it.
I think there will be.
Right?
Yeah, with the expansion.
I don't have money for you. I already allocated my money for you. Right? I've been laying people off.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody acts like it's a faucet.
Right?
It's not a faucet. It's a business.
And the other part, you talk about the Big Ten's need to, like people argue the Big Ten's need to be in the South in terms of a fan base. How many Penn State graduates? Look at the Alumni Association. There are plenty in the state of Florida. So I don't think you need that other part of it. Oh, you need a team to really get that part of the map. You have that part of the map already. Yeah. You have the 50 state. You especially have the South. The major parts of the country you have.
That's what brands do. Brands aren't just related to their market.
And Big Ten's got 4 minimum.
And outstanding secondary brands. Michigan State, UCLA, Iowa, Wisconsin, Nebraska.
Sure.
Okay? So good secondary brands. SEC, a lot of good secondary brands.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Now let's get to something else. As time goes, there's going to be more of a push about players getting money in college. There's a reluctance among most athletic directors who now have their TV deals and are now allocating how they want to allocate money for TV, out of the TV deals as they go. And now remember, the Big Ten is backloaded. That TV deal is backloaded. So just keep that in mind. And there would be a reluctance to share that kind of revenue from the stadium, that kind of revenue with with TV and media with them. Okay. I think when the college football playoff comes up, there might be a clause in it about some revenue sharing. Maybe. We'll see how it plays out. So let me bring up this one and see what you think about it. What are we seeing more and more of on the pro level? Whether it's Major League Baseball, the NBA, you're seeing it with the NHL. Now, I'm training camp for the NFL, but I don't see it in the regular season. But that little patch on the uniform, right? That's,
You've seen it.
Do you sell a patch on the uniform to a corporate entity that pays to have that patch, and you then in turn take that money and allocate it toward the players?
I think it is on its way to being a very, very, very good possibility. I don't think there's any question about that at this point in time now. You even go back to college football didn't even have stadium sponsors. College football didn't really have arena sponsors. They've got them now.
Yep.
So I don't think there's any question about it that you are on your way to doing that. College football, college sports. Football, I always say, because you always say it's king, and it should be, and it is.
Yep.
The college sports as a whole is reaching the point that it is not only a massive business, it's getting close to, not necessarily ratings-wise and popularity-wise, but it's getting close to how the pro organizations operate. So I think at this point, you're going to probably not only entertain that idea, I think that is a great possibility within the next 5 to 7 years. I think
sooner
probably.
than that.
Yeah, I think there's a very good chance.
I think sooner rather than later. You're already seeing it on the pro level.
Yeah, especially at the and all the sports. You know, the NBA obviously just added it 4 or 5 years ago.
Yes.
Major League Baseball is going to have it at some point.
The NBA did it first.
Yeah, NBA did it first. Training camps, I think, have always had it on the uniform first. But and you know how ironic it is. You go back to the movie Major League 2, where Roger Dorn did a little redecorating on the walls to increase his profits, and it was humorous at that time. Anymore, that was the start of what we now have, because you've got it big time in Major League Baseball. You have it on the courts, on the basketball courts, and you certainly have it in football stadiums now at this point. So that is now what really we are seeing, and that is the ways to generate revenue, but it's also ways to, as it does in the pros and it's going to do in college, get more money to the players at this point.
I mean, it is something, especially in football and in men's basketball, that if you're looking for revenue sources and how can I get money to the players, right? Is that a way to do it? Because you already have your TV contract. Penn State's in the process right now of solidifying its next radio contract, right? So you have media contracts that are there and set you up for 7 and in some cases 10 to 15 years, okay? Now the TV deals are 7. The next TV deal for the Big Ten is going to be an even bigger one because, again, you've got the brands and you have the markets. The footprint is what networks desire. The networks desire the Big Ten footprint. So where do you come up with more money? Well, for one thing, okay, there's only so many times you can keep going to the fans for that, right? You know, we talk about going to the fans for tickets, going to the fans for donations, going to the fans for donations for parking, then paying for the parking, donations by the fans to collectives or to endowments and things like that. That's fine. How do you come up with another revenue stream that gives you the possibility of maybe doing that and helping out as many student athletes as possible? I'll never forget when Penn State got its uniforms and the Nike swoosh was on the front, and people went just like, "Can you believe? Look at Nike! Look at this one! Wow!" Right? And of course, now people sit there and they see the Nike swoosh and they don't think twice about it. Like, okay, whatever.
That that you give credit to. I give all the credit in the world to the man that I will say it made this university football-wise what it is, and that was, look, Joe did not ever want anything fancy.
No.
He didn't even like the numbers on the helmet. He didn't want nothing fancy at all.
Well, you know how that happened?
Yeah.
How the numbers came off the helmet? They sent the helmets for whatever season it was, and they didn't have the numbers on it.
Okay.
And they said, hey, I think it was Tim Shope, I think it was at the time. And Shope, I guess, went to him. He said, hey, Joe, they sent the helmets. He said, but they don't have the numbers. He said, good. He said, don't bother calling them.
You can go back to the Rose Bowl in 95 or 94 with the patch. No, don't put it.
Oh, no. Oh, yeah, they didn't put the Rose Bowl patch on. But they'd see. But remember, Penn State played with a Big Ten patch in the Blockbuster Bowl.
Yes.
Where
Chief Osceola angered Joe quite a bit.
Yeah, he took the spear and he.
I'll never
No.
forget that.
That was the Blockbuster Bowl before. This is when they played Stanford.
Oh, the one in '92. Yeah.
They played Stanford and had the Big Ten patch. But when they put the swoosh on there, oh my God, it's like you're sitting there going, okay, well they're paying for all this stuff. I mean, Penn State's getting free jerseys, uniforms, so forth, shoes.
Not like free. I was going to say they're being paid too.
In
a lot of ways.
So I don't mind if it's on there.
Yeah.
So now let's move it fast forward. What is to keep either a university or the conference as a whole from negotiating a corporate deal to put a patch on the sleeve or on the front? I mean, do you mind? I mean, I watch an NBA game. I don't mind.
No, it's
I think
not.
Was it the Warriors or Rakuten or something like that?
Warriors Rakuten. Yep, Sixers had stub up for a while. Yep.
Yeah, right. I don't think people think twice about it. First of all, they're not oppressive.
No.
I'm watching Major League Baseball the other night, and they had them on the sleeve.
Sure. Yeah. No, and part of that also, everything else that has grown. You look at the press conferences. It used to say Penn State behind James Franklin. Now it has a sponsor.
Right.
So, and that's the way it has gone anymore. I think that is what we're living in terms of just trying to generate the revenue to balance out the books. I think that's one of the biggest things. And yeah, I absolutely agree. I think there's no question that's coming at some point.
I think there's going to be, and I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later. Now, whether you have to clear the NCAA, I mean, no offense. Do you feel like you need to clear with the NCAA on anything now?
No.
I mean,
you can pick your own suspensions in the NCAA, apparently, so I don't think you have to clear anything when it comes to an organization that has lost every court battle known to man.
I'm just saying, it's just not, I mean,
no.
In the conferences, I mean, I could see the SEC going first on this.
Very good chance. Yep, because they're going to want to go first. They're going to have the sense of it, and they're going to want to go first. Yeah, absolutely.
But I also say that Tony Petitti appears to have a pretty good sense of business and how all of this works. And you can talk expansion all you want, but to me, the Big Ten and the SEC, to me, are both sitting in the catbird seat, where if they do nothing, they're still sitting in the catbird seat.
Yeah, no question.
Okay? Yep. They both have. The SEC has its deal with ESPN into the early 2030s. Yep. The Big Ten has 7 years on this TV deal coming up. Right? Their top brands are only getting better.
Right.
The college football playoff's about to expand, so it's going to be more money, and the possibility that the Big Ten could get anywhere from, the SEC and the Big Ten will both be fighting their guts out to see if they can get between 3 and 5 schools into this playoff. And if the playoff goes to 16, you're darn right they could be looking at 4 schools apiece. Right? Could be doing that. Right? Which is more money.
Mm-hmm.
And now how do you come up with other revenue sources? And the other revenue source is, I see what the NBA's done. I see what the NHL has done. I see what Major League Baseball's done. I see what the NFL's done with its training camps. I got a little bit of real estate up here. Whether it's on the shoulder or on the sleeve. Okay, do I sit there now?
Or even the helmet if you had to. I think it'd be the sleeve first, but
I think you don't want to do the helmet. And the reason you don't want to do the helmet is that, number one, the patch has to be big enough.
Yeah, and the teams also have logos.
Right.
Yeah.
The patch has to be big enough where on TV you can see it, because the fans are not going to see it.
Not in the helmet.
Okay? I mean, you're sitting in a Major League Baseball game. You could be sitting in the first row. You still can't read the patch on the sleeve.
Right.
Okay? You can't. But on TV, you can see it. That's the purpose of having it. Right? The purpose of having it.
And these organizations know that. That's a big reason why, baseball behind home plate, that's not actually there, but it's there on TV.
Right.
Yeah, that's a big reason. The fans aren't going to see it live in person.
Right, exactly. So this is something where it's worthy of discussion, because now you're seeing it across the board, and the fact that it is now accepted because of what the NBA has done, accepted because of what Major League Baseball has done, accepted because of what the NHL has done. Now, the NFL is just preseason.
Yeah. Training camp is where they really did it for many years. Always had that logo.
No offense, the NFL sells everything.
Well, I think so. I mean, it can. Who's going to turn down the NFL? You turn down the NFL, you lose a sponsorship with the biggest organization in sports. So you're in a world of trouble after that. So you're not going to turn down the NFL.
So you're sitting there with the idea that, especially when it comes to, above all, football, and then eventually with the NCAA basketball tournament, of being able to do that then is a potential cash flow that you can take some, I didn't say all, take some and maybe be allowed to redirect towards your student athletes. Just a thought. Now, do you do that as a conference and negotiate it? You allow schools to do it individually? Don't know.
Yeah, that's going to be the interesting part of it. I think you can do it either way. I don't think there's any question about it. I think it's easier if you let the schools do it individually, because I think they can. I don't think there's any doubt that these schools have the ability and the resources to do that. So I think that would probably be easier. But if you're a Big Ten and you want a sole sponsorship, go for it. But I think, to me, it's easier if you just let the schools do it. Big Ten's going to get money no matter what.
But then again, okay, so I'm talking now let's talk about this from a competitive point of view. By doing it individually, there will be certain advantages built in for certain entities.
Yeah.
Based on market. Now this is where market comes in. If the conference does it, the money's then divided evenly.
Yeah. I think
I'm just throwing that in there.
Yep.
Now, to do it as a full entity, the number has to be huge.
Yeah.
By doing it individually, you can then tailor it to whatever
number. Yeah, which I think is what they would want. Right. I think that's probably, if the schools have any say, I think they're going to go with the latter. I think you want to have your own ability to bring that sponsor in.
And that's,
yeah. And that's almost like how Major League Baseball is with the revenue sharing with free agents. Hey, we're able to sell this Indiana's not. Why should we share it?
Right.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of how baseball is with the free agents. Why should we share revenue with teams that don't want to spend money? So I think that's a big reason why, to me, probably if the schools have a say at all, which I think the smart thing would be to have them have a say in one way or another.
Right.
I think you would probably have the schools sell it themselves.
Right.
Which they can do. I think everybody in the Big Ten is capable of doing it. There's no question.
Right.
You will have people lining up to want to be on that jersey.
I'm just saying that it is something to think about.
Happen. Yeah, it's only a matter of time.
It is something to think about, because you're looking for new revenue streams wherever you can find it.
And that's a way to get it. And from a fan's perspective, to any fan that would have any issue with it, which I don't think most will, I think for the most part they wouldn't, but would you rather that, or would you rather Beaver Stadium renamed? Or would you rather the Bryce Jordan Center renamed? I think you're going with the jersey long before you're going with either one of those.
Right. So
because you need it. One way or another, you're going. It's just right now, the world we're in terms of college sports. You need to generate more revenue.
All right. And that's just the name of the game. So how do you do it? 1984, Peter Ueberroth is in charge of the Summer Olympic Games. The Olympic Games financially are in trouble. Not just Los Angeles, but worldwide. I mean, the Soviet Union took an absolute bath in 1980 financially. Montreal took an absolute bath in 1976. Absolute bath. I mean, they're in trouble. 72 Munich took a bath. All right? I mean, you bet all this money and then you lose it. You lose even more. Ueberroth goes into Los Angeles, and he's the one that says, hey, look, you know what? We got to sell this stuff. We got to get corporate entities involved. And again, what does he get? Well, it's the Olympic movement. It's amateurism. It's there's resistance. He looks at him and goes, hey, it's the wave of the future. Come on. So they look around and he said, you want to just keep losing money? There'll be no Olympic Games. You can. It's adorable. Let's all go to Sydney in 1988, and you may not be going to Sydney. May not be going to Barcelona. So they took steps forward, and he changed the entire model because he got corporate entities involved in the Olympics, and it saved the Olympic movement when he did it. All right? And then when they opened and finally said, the heck with the amateur model, let's let the pros play. And in 92, we all know what happened with Jordan and Barkley and Bird and Magic and David Robinson and Ewing and, keep going, Clyde Drexler and the entire group. The Dream Team.
Christian Laettner, since everybody forgets him, we'll name him on this show.
No.
Hall of Famers and Christian Laettner. It's almost like the old commercials with Bob Uecker. Hall of Famers and Bob. Well, now he's in, but they can't do that anymore. No. But yeah, that's...
let me put it this way.
12 Hall of Famers and Christian Laettner.
One of the great...
There are 11 Hall of Famers.
One of the truly great stats in the history of sports. Chuck Daly coached an entire tournament and called no timeouts.
Didn't have to.
There was no
Didn't
need.
have to.
No need.
Unbelievable.
But that's how they've changed. The Olympics that you're going to see in Paris next year are not the same Olympics you would have seen in 76 or 80 in Montreal or in Moscow. You just wouldn't. Okay? Remember the 76 Winter Olympics were supposed to go to Denver.
Yeah.
Okay? Denver won the bid. Okay? Innsbruck in Austria ended up hosting it because Denver, people said, we're not paying for this. And they lost it because the voters said, we're not paying for it. All right? Now, Lake Placid had it obviously in 80. Yeah, but they lost money too. So finally you get to this point where this guy comes up with an idea, meets with resistance, but he got corporate entities involved. Oh, you're going to commercialize the Olympics. Well, what in the heck do you think it is?
Yeah.
I care if McDonald's sponsors the ski jump?
Yeah.
I just want to see the ski jump.
Yeah.
If McDonald's sponsoring it allows them to build the hill, I'm in. Okay?
Exactly.
Right? To build the ramp. I'm in.
That I think is
no problem with that.
That's the biggest part of it. You not only got sponsorship, you got the biggest possible corporate sponsors you could get to support the Olympics. You got Coca-Cola, you got McDonald's. Those are two of the biggest in the world.
And this is college football. You use that as the fulcrum to getting the dollars in for everybody else.
Yes, which you will do and you can do. There's no question you can do it.
I don't care if they put a patch on the sleeve.
Yeah.
It gets to the point where you've got to check all. Okay. The amateurism model in college sports, which has been fought tooth and nail by the NCAA, and all they did was kick it down the road to the point of disorganization now. You have to sit there and say, okay, let's move forward. What model makes it work?
What model makes it work? Exactly. And that's spot on. And that's because like I said, we're at the point now where, look, you are seeing free agency in college sports, whether you want to admit that or not. These athletes have the chance now to go somewhere else and play right away. which they didn't have a decade ago. They didn't have 12 years ago. They now have that opportunity.
Yep.
It's changed in a big way. You have to adapt to that change. And that's anywhere, no matter how simple you wish to be as a college sport, as a college university period, you have to adapt to those changes to stay afloat. Otherwise, you will not.
Jim Thorpe was stripped of his medals
Yep.
from Stockholm because he played in a Major League Baseball game or a minor league baseball game, whatever.
Minor league, yep.
Okay. You're talking, what, 111 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
If you sit there now and you tell a client that, they're looking at you, well, that's stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Otto Maroons stripped of their championship because they played a scrimmage. Yeah.
Ideas that people were so rigid about back in the day. I mean, Rod Laver won 2 Grand Slams in tennis, separated by, what, 8 years, something like that.
Around there.
Oh, how come he didn't? What happened in the 8 years? Oh, Rod played professional tennis. Rod Laver wasn't allowed to participate in tournaments because he was a pro. You had to be an amateur to play at Wimbledon. Really? Right? So we've already seen where people have sat back and said, you know what? We're going to stick to the amateur mile because guess what? It's a way to get the cheap labor in to perform. Really? Oh. Well, now Wimbledon is bigger than ever, right? They're pros, but Rod Laver went all those years. And 2-time Grand Slam winner. I mean, he won the Grand Slam twice. Not once, twice. And when you look at his career, why didn't he win more? Oh, he didn't win more because he was a professional. Yeah. Laver was ranked the number 1 player, professional player, for 5 years, from 65 to 69. Yeah. And he didn't win more tournaments. Why? Notice from 62 to 68, there's no Rod Laver. All right. 11 Grand Slam singles titles, 8 pro major titles. Yeah. It's unbelievable. Because, again, he was a pro. Right? Amateur till 62. Yeah. And then after that, there you go. I mean, archaic thinking. Okay, I love tradition. So believe me, there's so much about tradition I love. But I don't allow tradition to get in the way when it comes to archaic thinking. I just don't. And you have got to think in a different way now. And by allowing sponsorships to be on the uniforms of players, it takes a lot of pressure off the fans.
Mm-hmm. And that's the way you have to present it.
Yep.
You have to present it that way. And I think it will win over a lot of people very easily. The ones that are against it will be won over. Not everybody, but a good bit of them will be won over by that.
Yeah.
It's going to take a lot over what you owe for season tickets. It's going to take a lot off of what you owe for parking. It's going to take a lot off of what you owe for your donations. It's going to take a lot off of what you owe for any fundraiser.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No question. Yeah. 63, 64, 65, 66, 67. No Rod Laver. Really? Yeah. So he played in professional Grand Slams. He played the U.S. Pro, the French Pro, the Wembley Pro, things like that. He won all those, but they're not majors. But there are years he didn't participate because he was a pro. Right? You have to. History is a great teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Use it. Use it. Hey, 1984. It'll be 40 years. It was 40 years ago this year, in 1983, that Ubroth was crafting corporate sponsorships for 84, 40 years ago. Oh, yeah, I don't know if you can do that. I don't know if you can do that. Oh, okay, here are your options. You either have it or you don't.
Yeah.
And I think you have to be smart about this. And
Yeah,
it's something.
there will be.
It is. Well, I wouldn't be. Rest assured on this.
I think so. I most will be.
All right. There's a lot of really good minds out there.
Yep.
Trust them.
Yes.
Right. But I mean, I don't want them to look like a NASCAR fire suit
Oh my goodness.
with sponsorships all over.
And then
the
every
place.
interview, you don't even get to explain what happened. You're thanking all your sponsors.
Yeah, I just want to thank the Goodyear team.
Or you're
and all.
smacking
It's like,
the drink off your car because you're not sponsoring that one.
Right. It's so.
You can't let it
Okay.
reach that point because it ruined the
But that's why the NBA. That's why you look at what the NBA's done, NHL, and the and Major League Baseball, and then training camp for football.
Yep.
Each one has a sponsorship, and it's subtly put on. The uniform is not dominated by it.
Right.
It's just there.
It's there. Yep.
Well, it's kind of like us.
Right.
We're just there.
That's right.
Interesting hour. Yeah, just thrilled that, great shirt choice today. After some of the disgusting things you wore this week. It's just awful. What do you think when you make those choices?
Random selection.
Nobody could tell. Have a great weekend, buddy.